I was mute. Sorry, Christelle, but I was introducing you. I said that you are a lecturer in the Department of Earth Planetary Science and Sovereign Institute for Marine Institute in the University of Hong Kong, and your research is focused on human impacts on ocean and climate, with particular attention on plastics. Today, in her talk, she's going to talk about the dual challenge of plastics, and you have like 15 minutes for your presentations, and then we are going to open an space to formulate questions. Also, I have to remember that if you have any question offline, you can write the question in the chat, and she can respond all your questions. So thank you very much, and you can begin whenever you want, Christelle. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really sad to not be in the room with all of you. I think it's really a missed opportunity for me to not be able to share with an interdisciplinary room and a topic that I want to discuss more today, which is about plastic. So please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, because I've been working on plastic in the ocean or even on land for 10 years now, and I'm convinced that interdisciplinary is essential in the way we will develop solution to the plastic problem. Science won't solve anything by itself. An interdisciplinary approach is key here. And in fact, I really want to start with, sorry, is that moving? Yes. I really want to start with that sentence as that really summarize the problem from my point of view is we know the harm of the plastic is doing in the ocean ecosystem at large. But still, we are buying the convenience. And I think this is part of a big part of the problem is the convenience that plastic brings. And I think it's a reason that interdisciplinary approach is key here. So before we dig into a little bit more into the convenience and that duality between knowing the problem and still, I want to say, having a limited effort or into the problem or into the solutions for those problems, I want to take a step back and remind to all of you in the room, plastic, what they are. So first, plastic is a fossil fuel based material that is formed from the combination of small molecules that we call monomers into long chain or even very long chain of repeated units. So we call them polymers because it's a succession of the same monomers. Those monomers can be repeated thousands and hundreds of thousands of times. On top of that, there is additives that are added, so other chemicals that are added to that succession of monomers, to that polymers, and additives are a very large range of chemical products who help or could help for the colors of the plastic, for the texture of the plastic, etc., etc. So there is approximately from less than 1% to a couple of percent of additive into a plastic polymers. Another important fact that I think it's important to keep in mind when we talk about plastic and the plastic pollution in general is the first plastic have been synthesized in the late 19th century. And the first one was a semi-synthetic molecule that called celluloid, and that was developed to replace ivory for the beer bottle. And that was the first time that we have developed. By the mid of the 20th century, it's really the beginning of the start of the industrial production of plastic, mostly due to the challenges related to the Second World War to get other type of material like wood, metals, or glass. And then it really started this way. Just to give you an idea of the plastic production since really we started to have an industrial production. So in 1950, there were approximately 2 million tons per year of plastic that were produced. In 1980, it was 15 million tons. In 2000, we reached more than 200 millions of tons. In 2020, we were at 430 approximately millions of tons. 2025, 500 millions. And the estimation are just increasing. The certain estimations give a range for 2050 of 1,000 or 1,500 millions of tons. So you see that very quickly the production of plastic has really exploded. And here is a page of the Life magazine in 1955 that show really how plastic can be very useful and beneficial for our daily life. So the article title is A Throwaway Living, that show how a family will just throw away the plate, cutlery, cup that are all disposable on the picture. And the message is quite clear. It's like, disposable will gain you time, and it's even written in the articles, and it gives you freedom, modernity, and hygiene. So that was not just an advertisement. I think it was really a first message to the society that discarding or throwing things away is not wasteful, but it could be seen as really have a lifestyle. And I think the problem that we have today is that narrative is still present in our daily life. Single-use plastic are still marketed really has a language of, and we'll discuss, convenience, speed, cleanliness, and in a lot of parts of the world, I'm based in Asia, for example, disposable packaging is really associated with hygiene and modernity, and not at all pollution. But that, I think, is really threatening our environment and our oceans. So the model that we discuss, or the throwaway lifestyle that we have discussed, is still today. So it's not rare to see a garbage bin like this in Asia, full of single-use plastic. And in fact, when we look at the data globally, there is estimation, it was a research done by Geyer et al. In 2017, that have estimated that approximately 9% of all the plastic ever produced have been recycled, and 12% have been incinerated, and the remaining has accumulated in landfill or in the natural environment. So the problem with that throwaway lifestyle and the plastic production is we have increased our consumption of plastic without developing a good waste management. So we have a plastic that ends up in landfill or in the environment, but then when it's present in the environment, it's not going away. So I think that sentence, the world behaves as if plastic ends when you throw it away, but we know it's not the case. We have pictures and hundreds of examples, of thousands of examples of plastic everywhere in the ocean or in the coastline. And once those plastic are present in the environment, they do not stay there. In fact, they fragmentate into smaller plastic pieces. So I think most of you are quite familiar with the microplastic pieces. So the plastic pieces smaller than 5 millimeters, but we know that it's, again, not the end. It fragmented smaller and smaller to nanoplastic or even smaller. We know that those smaller plastic pieces are everywhere in the ocean, at the surface, at the bottom, in the Arctic Ocean, in the equator. They are everywhere. There is exchange between the atmosphere and the surface of the ocean water. So we have definitely the presence everywhere. On top of that, the smaller the pieces are, the more easily they are ingested by a large variety of fauna. So obviously, the plastic bag, the straw have an impact on larger organisms, but the smaller, the microplastic pieces has also an impact on smaller organisms. So plankton, for example, there is evidences of plankton ingested microplastic. So really, the convenience that brings plastic usage and single-use plastic has a huge impact and has a huge impact on the contamination of the oceans or on the environment in general. That leads us to really the paradox that I have that I wanted to bring to your attention is we know plastic is a problem. It's clear. We have evidences. There is a lot of research done on that. Yet we are relatively slow, I want to say, to take actions or to have a really solution to that. And I want to try to discuss a little bit why. So from my point of view, I can see three reasons that I try to organize for that particular slow change or slow reform, as I call it here. The first is the scientific uncertainty. And the first one is not that, again, we are still uncertain about the pollution impact, but it's mostly that it's used to really delay those the changes. There is also complexity in the toxicology of the microplastic. So all the chemicals will affect organisms, or more importantly, even human. And I think we are starting to see the first publication that look at plastic or microplastic, nanoplastic presence in human body, but it's really the beginning. There is still technical challenges to do that. So it's a reason I think that it has led to a slow reform, because the government have taken an approach, say, oh, we are not certain, we need more time to look and to really fully get the scientific findings there. Now, the second reason why I see a very slow changes is what I call the institutional mismatch. And that is really, there is legislation that have been passed at national level or even at more local level, but they are not, they are facing some changes that we will discuss a little bit after with one case study. Recycling also has been seen as a solution for plastic, but again, it is most of the time very inconsistent and very challenging to do. And then the third reason when I see a very slow changes is really culture and economic convenience that remain really strong. Plastic is cheap, is really good material. It's really now really part of our daily life. I think it is a real challenge to go through a single journey without using any plastic in a lot of our activity, in food. So those are part of our really habits that we have in our daily life. And I think it's also one of the reasons why the slow are very slow, or the change are very slowish. So I would like to take here maybe a couple of minutes to look at two particular case studies that I have worked on. And the first one is microbeads case study. So microbeads are small plastic particles that are put in face cleaner or personal care products. Some toothpaste do have also microbeads, but generally speaking, it will be face cleaner like the picture that is shown here. It's used as an exfoliating agent. Usually you use them, they are washed with your drain water, and they will go through the wastewater treatment plant if your water are treated by them. And relatively, most of the wastewater treatment plants are good to capturing those microbeads. But even when they are good, there is even a small percentage that go through and end up in the ocean. And when we look at monitoring, we see those microbeads at the surface of the ocean. In fact, several countries have banned those microbeads in rinse-off, so in, for example, in face cleaner, because there were alternative solutions that are natural. So it was probably the first type of microplastic that has been banned quite by several countries. So it sounds like a good success story, But in fact, recently I did some research to look at the products. So I bought products in different countries around the world, and some in places where there were no ban, some where the ban have been announced, but they were in the grace period, and when we bought the products, and then some products when we had a full ban. And our findings are that in most of the product, we have found synthetic microbeads. And if we look at the results, what most of the producers have done, the producer of those facial scrub or product, cosmetic product, they have changed slightly the composition of those microbeads in a way that they have reduced the number of repetition of the monomers, so that it doesn't fall under the same definition. So a polyethylene, for example, microbeads have hundreds of thousands of repetitions. If you reduce this number of repetition, it will be called, for example, synthetic wax, because it will only be thousands of repetitions. The molecule is still long, it doesn't still have the same behavior in the environment. So what I want to show you here is even when policies are put in place, the wording, the precision, and is really important. So the take home of this is policies are really important. I don't want to say that they are useless. They are important, they are necessary, but they must be designed and adjusted looking in collaboration with some scientific information and really looking at behaviors of the molecule, not just the name of the chemicals. The second case study that I would like to bring to your attention, again, when we think about institutional mismatch, is recycling. In consumer view, in most of the society view, one solution to the plastic problem is to do more recycling. But in fact, it is not as an easy solution as it sounds, because plastic recycling is very challenging for a lot of different reasons. And I want to bring the particular example of the PET, so the plastic bottle that we see everywhere. And want to give you the different challenges to that particular type of plastic recycling, looking at some information that we have here, where I'm based here in Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong, we have a population of approximately 8 millions of people, and there is estimation that we consume 5 millions of plastic bottles like this per day. There is estimation that 15% of those bottles only are recycled. Yet, it's the only big recycling facility that we have. It's dedicated to those bottles, and they have the capacity to approximately manage 2 millions of bottles a day. And yet they are struggling for several reasons. On the paper, we consume way more plastic bottle. Unfortunately, that's what the recycling plant can handle. But they are struggling because they don't have enough plastic bottles. So a lot of reason for that. First, recycling habits, consumer habits to put the bottle into the recycling bin. That today it's still a challenge for the recycling plant to get enough. Second, when they are put in the recycling bin, by the time they reach the recycling plant, there is some leak, there is some challenges to collect them. So even if they are put in the bin, they do not necessarily end up in the recycling plant. In small territories like Hong Kong, it can just give us an idea how even more challenging it could be when you face larger territories. And then if we go into details, in fact, there is a lot of even the design of the product, of the bottle itself, can reduce the recycling. So when you do recycling, you only recycle the same type of plastic, the same polymers. If you mix polymers, it will reduce the quality of the recycled plastic, and you cannot necessarily reuse it to do the same. So you have a downscaling of the plastic. So to use plastic bottle, to redo plastic bottles, you only need PET. And in fact, when you look at the composition of the labels are made of a vast different type of plastic polymers. So this is a study where we study over hundreds of bottles here in Hong Kong, and we look at the composition of the plastic label on the bottle. And half of PET, or even less than half, 29% of PVC. PVC is one plastic that is very, it produces some chemicals, toxic chemicals, while recycled like the PET. So you really don't want to have them mix because it could have some important toxic productions. And yet, almost 30% of the labels are that. So it requires an additional step to do that recycling. So really what I want to show here is even when we think we have a solution to it, there is a lot of factors, mostly related to human behavior, that make those solutions really feasible. And the third thing that I wanted to discuss in by these slow changes that we observe is the cultural and economic convenience. With an Asian lens, again, because I'm based here in Hong Kong, and for a long time, Asia have also received, and especially China, has received a lot of the recyclable plastic from other places in the world. China in 2018 has really stopped the import of plastic waste to really try to face their internal huge proportion of plastic waste and to find better waste management. So they have decided to stop receiving the one from other places, but that has moved to other places in Southeast Asia. But in the same time, in a lot of Asian society, convenience, especially around food, is really, really strong. There is no space, there is no time for the people here to cook. They will it's now almost every dish or every meal, people will buy takeout with the box, the cutleries, the bag surrounded that. And I have a picture here of a McDonald's. That was a couple of years ago. There is a ban in Hong Kong that have stopped that. But there is also, you see, I don't know if you noticed, but there is a bag around the cup for the drinks. This is because people don't want to have their hands wet by the condensation of the cold drink when it's hot outside. So you have bags to put those. So really convenience is really strong. Hygiene also, when we discuss with the people why you don't, when you're in a coffee, you don't take, and you drink your coffee in the coffee shop, why you don't have a ceramic cup. Most of the people we say they don't think it's hygienic. They are not cleaned very well. So again, in Asia, but not only, our society, because of the convenience, rely strongly on single-use plastic. And the more we use single-use plastic, the more plastic are put into waste and end up then into the environment. So I would like to really conclude this talk, and I hope I've managed to show you that the plastic problem, it's not a knowledge problem about the presence of plastic in the environment. It's more related to the culture, to the governance, to the design also of the product. We know enough really to act, but our actions are taking time. There is, from my point of view, and it's maybe something I want to open up, and would be curious to hear your thoughts on that. I think one of the solutions or the approach we have to take is to really, can we redesign the convenience so it doesn't come with the impact that we see on the environment from the plastic? So I will stop with that. I've been a bit too long, so thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any question or really open up for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christelle. We like your presentation, as we can see the both faces of plastic and plastic pollution. And right now we are open these 10 minutes, 15 minutes space for questions and also online questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I was wondering, since you are based in Asia, you might be aware that, a very big narrative about marine plastic pollution is blaming Southeast Asian countries for their lack of adequate management. Whereas, of course, the picture, if you look in the political economy of the petrochemical sector, is much more complicated in the sense of who's to blame for the problem. So I wonder if you could say something about that. I mean, many of these narratives, for just some context, came from very high impact papers in Nature or show that modelated how much plastics went through the rivers, and they found out that 10 most polluted rivers were in the global south or something like that, and most of them in Southeast Asia. So yeah, shifting the global blame to the majority world yet again. So I wonder what you had to say about this narrative, which is predominant.
Yes, thank you very much for your questions. I think there is two questions here. The first one, I think it's a very interesting question because it really, as you say, it's more political and economical than more focused on the pollution. So those countries, yes, I won't say that they are managing very well the plastic, but because they are facing the same issues that other countries, they don't have the facilities, they don't have the technology, and to be honest, none of the country, no one in the world have good way to manage those plastics. But they are taking them because they bring an economy. It brings money. They are, it's the reason they are taking those. Yet, to work and to have discussed with people, for example, in Malaysia and in Indonesia, the people, especially the one who benefit from the sea, have a fisherman or even tourism from the sea, they do see the negative impact of taking all of those plastic because they do end up in the ocean. So I want to say that people are starting to be more negative on that economy of taking the plastic from other places. But there is no, at least today, I don't think there is a good solution of that trades. So that is my answer to your first question. For the second question related to that paper, the paper that it was a very important paper because it was the first one to try to quantify where the plastic comes from. And that was a very, very important scientific paper. Yet, when looking into detail to that paper, they had the numbers, the estimation of the plastic put by the rivers were with two assumptions. It was related to number of population and an evaluation of the waste management of the countries. So Eastern countries, and I'm not saying that they are doing well, but they had been the waste management that were in place was not well evaluated, so leading to some high numbers. Again, I'm not saying that those plastic do not end up in the ocean and the Asian country are not contributing. Really briefly, you are walking in a beach in Asia, which I do quite a lot, and you do the same in Europe, and I do visit Europe regularly. I'm French originally. We are not looking at the same level of plastic pollution. There is a huge difference. In Asia, we have really a lot of plastic. But I want to say that the river might have been overestimated, and there is more direct input that were not part of that paper. But in Asia, why that is important? It's because, for example, in Hong Kong, we have the Pearl River just next to it, which is one of the main rivers in China. And Hong Kong has been saying for a certain number of years, plastic issue that we have on our coastline, it's not a problem because it's all come from the Pearl River. So it's China problem, or it's their fault, which is completely biased, I want to say. And in Hong Kong, our daily action do put a significant proportion of the plastic that we find in the coastline. So it's the reason I'm a little bit careful when I work or when I use those numbers and those shortcuts of all the main rivers in Asia bring plastic. They are not, unfortunately, the only part of the story for why we have so much plastic here.
Okay, right now I'm going to read an online question.
Yes, yes.
From Yelena. I'm going to read it for people here.
Okay.
She said, "Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. A global plastic treaty is currently under negotiations, but seems difficult to reach an agreement between the states. Do you have any insights into this following the negotiation, and what is your perspective?"
Insight, it's a big, it's not reaching an agreement. So I am part within this UN plastic treaty negotiation. We have a scientific coalition, so a group of scientists who try to go to those meetings and to really share the most advanced science that we know, especially with the delegate of the different countries. So as you might be aware, they had 5 meetings. They were supposed to have 4 in 2 years and to find an agreement. They went to the 5th one without finding an agreement. The chair of that committee has just been recently, the new chair of that committee has just been recently appointed. They said that the future looks like they want to have more internal negotiation without presence of observers like the scientists. From my take-home message from the people who have been to those meetings, the last meeting in particular, there is 2 groups of countries, the one who wants something that is quite strong, and there is this those discussion about having a quota in the quantity of plastic that can be produced. So and that notion of essential plastic. And so there is a group of countries who really want to be quite strong, limiting the quantity of plastic produced, limiting also the type, so leading to maybe essential plastic related to medical usage, for example. And there is another group who doesn't want that, who want to keep it very low. There is a very strong push also from lobbying from the petrochemical industry, which is very powerful. So it is really challenging. And yes, and I think it would be very naive to say that they will find an agreement soon.
Yeah, we have another question here.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I have a question in relation to the regulations, because sometimes, silos or conflicts makes it quite difficult to implement some of these provisions. And so I wonder whether you feel that there is a conflict between the implementation of the provisions of the Basel Convention of 1992. I know it was amended to include plastics, and then new frameworks that is now being introduced, such as the ones that you highlighted here. And if yes, how do you break the silos? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. I want to say that the challenge is the enforcement. Even if there is silos, but the greatest one is, how do you enforce those laws, those policies that have been put in place? And it's the same for all the other issues, in particularly at sea. So that is where I will see the greatest challenge.
Yes, another one here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess I have a question about the framing of convenience, because I think that it can be really difficult. Individuals don't always have a right to refuse plastics, and that there's a convenience for, for whom that the oil producing nations are holding up the plastic treaty because there's such an economic benefit. And so there's a structural issue. I mean, AI is being sold as the newest convenience and shoved down our throats, that this idea of plastics being convenient has some truth to it, but it's also been, engineered to be convenient and sold to us as this convenience where we don't always have an option to get away from it. And so, yeah, I'm just wondering about kind of that framing, if seeing it as a kind of individual convenience is also missing some of that picture of who's benefiting from it. Thanks.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree with you. Convenience had different layers. It's the individual one, and how do we respond to that? And you said sometimes, as much as you want to not use, it's not always easy. I don't want. There is definitely people who are really managing to reduce all those no plastic waste, but it is really not easy. You really need to put strong effort to not use any plastic in your life. But in the same time, so this is at the individual level, and when I discuss with people, sometimes they will say, yeah, but my individual action will make a change, and I don't have the power to make that or to change the system. But in the same time, I also believe that as a consumer, we have a voice that we tend to not use as is maximum capacity. So if, as a consumer, if you go back to the example of the labels, if you do request some changes to the industry, those will happen. But again, where to start, and that power play between industry, consumer, and then government is another level. It is very difficult, and I don't know how to answer really your questions. Which one will lead? Which one should go or should push? I think it's very difficult. And at the end of the day, I feel it's really time and space are also entering the equation here, meaning that not everywhere will have the same path forwards, I feel.
Any other question?
That was a really interesting talk. Thanks. I was just thinking the paradox of action looks really familiar. It's like a pattern that you probably see across a lot of industries. And this is maybe a naive question, but does the plastic industry talk about, is this a strategy that they develop and follow? Is there a different language? Is there something that they call this? Yeah, that's just curious about that.
I'm sure it is. I don't know how much it's official, but I think it's like, the convenience, the way we show us the narrative that is put on how we use plastic leads to the question just before. We do have a choice, but the choice is really not it's make it very difficult for us to choose what we really want. So I think it really goes back to that. So yeah, I really think there is the industry is making it very challenging for us to take actions individually.
Okay, so if we don't have any more question, we can pass to the last panel. Thank you very much, Christelle. I
Thank
continue
you.
with a lot of doubts, with a lot of ideas. So thank you. I said that I continue with a lot of doubts about plastic because I think it's a very difficult issue to manage with it. Like, for example, jurisdictional problems, like when consider an action a crime, because I think that most occasions are accumulative crimes because one discharge is not exclusively considered as a crime, but a lot of discharge could be considered like a crime. So I don't have the solutions. Maybe we need to move forward to this treaty or not, or to apply existing law. So thank you very much. And yes, let's now move forward to Ascensión García Ruiz presentation. Thank you.